This podcast idea is given by Sir Danish Tabassum.
All right, welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into those dreaded 20-mark essay questions, specifically in business studies. I know. They can seem pretty intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
But don't worry, by the end of this deep dive,
Right.
you'll be feeling way more confident about tackling them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? We have a fantastic guide to help us on this journey. Sir Danish Tabassum. He is an experienced business studies examiner.
Okay.
And he has generously shared his feedback on real student answers to two common 20-mark essay questions.
Real students.
Real student.
Okay, so we're looking at the real deal here.
The real deal. One question focuses on evaluating business performance, and the other one is all about advising on HR strategy.
So not just some hypothetical situation, we're looking at what students actually wrote and how an examiner actually assessed them.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And what I found fascinating is that Sir Danish's feedback, it's not limited to just these specific questions.
It kind of reveals some universal truths about what examiners are looking for in those high-scoring answers, regardless of the topic.
Oh, okay. So even though we're focusing on two specific questions, the takeaways are going to be applicable to almost any 20-mark essay.
Precisely.
That's super helpful. Okay, so let's get into these universal truths. What are some of the big picture takeaways that Sir Danish emphasizes?
Well, first thing that jumps out is the importance of careful reading.
Careful reading.
Careful reading. You might think, oh, come on, of course I read the question. But Sir Danish, he points out that students often skim the question and miss some crucial details, especially those sneaky command words.
Ah, yes. Command words. Evaluate, analyze, advise. They all kind of sound similar, but they require totally different approaches, right?
Exactly. And not recognizing those subtle differences can lead you down the wrong path. For instance, if the question is asking you to evaluate business performance, you can't just list facts and figures. You need to form a judgment, weigh the pros and cons, provide a balanced argument.
So it's not enough to just know your stuff. You have to show that you can actually use it to analyze the situation and form an opinion.
Precisely. And you got to stay focused.
Right. No, going on tangents about your favorite business guru.
Exactly. Sir Danish shared this anecdote, actually, about a student who wrote this brilliant essay on the principles of lean manufacturing.
Okay.
But it was totally irrelevant to the specific context of the case study.
Oh, dear. All that effort for nothing. So it's all about applying your knowledge to the specific situation, just like you would in the real business world.
Exactly.
Okay, careful reading, application of knowledge, check and check. What else should we keep in mind?
Another really important takeaway is this concept of depth over breadth.
Depth over breadth.
Depth over breadth. Sir Danish often sees students trying to cover every single point they can possibly think of, which ends up being a very superficial overview, lacking real in-depth analysis.
Oh, I think I've totally done that before. Like thinking, if I just throw enough information at the examiner, something's got to stick.
Right. But that's a common misconception. Examiners are actually looking for quality over quantity. They want to see you can develop a few key points in detail. That demonstrates a deep understanding of the subject matter.
So it's like crafting a gourmet meal with a few perfectly prepared dishes, rather than serving up a buffet of mediocre snacks.
That is a fantastic analogy.
Thank you.
And speaking of crafting, we can't forget the importance of structure. Structure. A well-organized essay, it's like a well-designed building. It's sturdy, it's easy to navigate, and it's pleasing to the eye. And thankfully, Sir Danish has actually shared a recommended structure for 20-mark essays, which we'll delve into later.
Okay. A blueprint for success. I can't wait for that. But before we get to that, let's dive into the specifics of those two essay questions that we talked about.
Sounds good. Let's start with question 1.
Okay.
Evaluating business performance. This one was particularly interesting because it was an open question. Open, meaning students had more freedom to choose which aspects of business performance they wanted to focus on.
Okay, freedom. That sounds great. But I imagine that also comes with its own set of challenges.
You're absolutely right. While that open-endedness, it allows students to play to their strengths, it also means there's more room for error. Sir Danish noticed many students struggled to stay focused and ended up just summarizing information from the case study without actually analyzing it.
So, like, telling the examiner what happened, but not explaining why it mattered
Yeah.
or what the implications were.
Exactly. They were missing that so what factor.
Right. So what?
So what? And another common mistake, forgetting to define those key terms.
Oh, right.
You can't assume the examiner knows exactly what you mean by business performance or any other concept that you're using. Clarity is key.
Definitions, those pesky little details. Okay, so let's talk about the marking criteria a little bit. For that knowledge component, what specific things did students need to define to get top marks?
Well, given the open nature of the question, students had a wide array of concepts they could choose from. Organizational structure, financial data, labor productivity, the list goes on. The key was to define those concepts in detail.
So not just a simple dictionary definition.
Not just a dictionary definition, you have to show a deeper understanding.
So don't just say, like, profit is the money earned, but maybe explain different types of profit, or how it's calculated, or why it's a crucial indicator of performance.
Exactly. Sir Danish actually gave a great example of a student who defined business performance as a measure of how well a business is achieving its objectives, taking into account the influence of stakeholders.
Wow, that's good. That's a really good definition.
Right. It connects the concept of business performance to the bigger picture, objectives and stakeholder influence.
Okay, we've got our definitions down. Now let's move on to the analysis part. What separated those level 2 answers from those that reached level 3 in Sir Danish's eyes?
Well, analysis in this context, it's all about demonstrating cause and effect relationships. Sir Danish calls them chains of events.
Chains of events, okay.
Chains of events. A level 2 analysis might just identify one link in the chain, such as increased marketing spend leads to higher brand awareness.
Right, okay. But that feels kind of incomplete. Like, what happens next? Why should we even care about higher brand awareness?
That's where level 3 analysis comes in. It takes that initial link and extends it, showing a deeper understanding of the consequences. So instead of stopping at higher brand awareness, a level 3 answer might say, increased marketing spend leads to higher brand awareness, which in turn can attract new customers and ultimately boost sales revenue.
Ah, I see. So it's like we're building a domino effect. One action triggers the chain reaction, leading to a specific outcome.
Exactly. And to really reach the highest level of analysis, you need to introduce a counter-argument.
Ooh, a counter-argument. Okay.
You might add, however, this strategy relies heavily on the effectiveness of the marketing campaign itself. A poorly executed campaign, it might lead to increased brand awareness without a corresponding increase in sales.
Right. So it's not always a straight line to success.
Yeah.
There are potential pitfalls and alternative scenarios to consider.
Precisely. And that brings us to the final frontier of the 20-mark essay, evaluation.
Evaluation.
This is where you flex those judgment muscles.
Okay.
And answer that so what question.
Judgment day. But where do we even begin?
First, answer the question directly.
Okay.
In this case, the question was, evaluate Elsie's business performance. So start by clearly stating whether you believe the business performance was successful or not.
Okay, so no fence sitting allowed. Pick a side and own it.
Exactly. That's your level 1 evaluation. But to level up your game, level 2 requires you to explain why you made that judgment.
Okay.
What evidence from the case study supports your view? And to reach that coveted level 3, you need to add context and nuance to your evaluation.
Okay, give me an example. My brain is craving some concrete details here.
All right, let's say you judged Elsie's business performance to be successful because of its high dividend yield. A level 2 evaluation might just simply state that. But a level 3 evaluation would dig deeper. Perhaps saying, while the high dividend yield suggests strong financial performance, it's crucial to consider its sustainability. If Elsie's dividend yield is based on short-term profits rather than consistent growth, it might not be a reliable indicator of long-term success.
Wow, that's insightful. It's not just about accepting a number at face value, but considering the factors that might influence it and its long-term implications.
Exactly. And that ability to think critically and provide a nuanced evaluation is what separates a good answer from a truly excellent one.
Okay, this is all incredibly helpful. I'm already feeling more confident about tackling these 20-mark essays. But we still have question 2 to explore, the one about advising on HR strategy. So stay tuned, because in part 2, we'll unpack what made this question different, what students did well, and how they could have achieved even higher marks.
Welcome back to our deep dive into 20-mark essay questions.
Yes, back to those essays.
We last left off talking all about question 1, the one focusing on evaluating business performance.
Right, evaluating that business performance.
Now let's switch gears a little bit and focus on question 2, which deals with HR strategy.
Yes. Question 2, advising on a new HR strategy to improve employee performance.
Yeah.
Now, Sir Danish mentioned that students actually did better on this question compared to the first one. Why do you think that is?
That's a great question. And Sir Danish, he believes it comes down to focus.
Focus.
Question 1, remember, was very open-ended.
Right, it was.
Question 2 had a very clear directive, advise on a new HR strategy to boost employee performance. So this really narrowed things down for the students, giving them a specific target.
So less room to wander off into those irrelevant tangents that we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Having that clear objective can make a world of difference.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're under pressure in an exam situation.
For sure.
But let's break this down a little bit further in terms of those assessment objectives. What did students do well in terms of knowledge, that AO1?
So just like with question 1, students needed to demonstrate a solid understanding of those key concepts. This time that meant defining terms like, well, HR strategy itself, as well as different types of strategies, like hard HRM versus soft HRM. Remember those?
Oh, right. Hard HRM and soft HRM. I remember hearing those terms thrown around in my business classes, but honestly, I could use a refresher. What are those all about again?
Of course. So in simple terms, hard HRM, it kind of sees employees as resources to be managed, controlled, often focusing on things like efficiency and cost effectiveness. Think, strict rules, performance metrics, maybe even a little bit of a my way or the highway approach.
Okay.
Soft HRM, on the other hand, that views employees as valuable assets to be developed and nurtured. So it emphasizes things like employee well-being, motivation, and engagement.
So it's like hard HRM is the strict coach pushing athletes to their limits.
Right.
While soft HRM is more like a mentor, focusing on individual growth and support.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks.
And Sir Danish noted that many students actually did a really good job of defining these concepts. They showed they really grasped those fundamental differences.
So they weren't just throwing around fancy jargon. They actually knew what they were talking about.
Precisely.
But defining is just the first step. What about analysis, that AO3? Did we see those beautiful chains of reasoning again in question 2?
Absolutely. Just like with the business performance question, analysis was crucial here.
Okay.
Students needed to show how different HR strategies could actually impact employee performance. And they had to do it by developing those cause and effect relationships, those domino chains.
No more one-link wonders.
No more one-link wonders.
We need to see those dominoes falling, one after the other, to demonstrate that deep understanding.
You got it.
Did Sir Danish mention any standout examples of top-notch analysis in the student responses?
Yes, he did. There's one example that really exemplifies how to nail this analysis component. A student was analyzing the potential impact of using flexible working arrangements as part of a soft HRM approach. They wrote, implementing flexible work arrangements, that's the what, allows employees to better manage work-life balance, reducing stress and boosting morale. That's the how. This, in turn, can lead to increased motivation and productivity. That's your why, which ultimately contributes to improved business performance and profitability. There's your so.
I'm seeing that beautiful domino effect.
Right.
Flexible work arrangements, better work-life balance, less stress, higher morale, motivation boost, productivity goes up, positive impact on the bottom line.
It's a chain reaction of positivity.
Exactly. And they didn't even stop there, right?
No, they didn't. They took it a step further, adding, however, here comes that counter-argument. Implementing flexible working arrangements might require investment in new technologies and training to ensure effective communication and collaboration among employees.
There it is, that counter-argument. It's not just about highlighting the good stuff.
Right.
But also acknowledging the potential challenges.
Exactly.
The trade-offs. I love it.
And this student very cleverly linked their analysis to the specific case study.
Oh, nice.
Mentioning the need for investment in new technologies, which was actually hinted at in the case study's description of the company.
Ooh, smart. Snagging those application marks.
Banging those bars.
Bravo. So we've got knowledge, we've got analysis. Now it's time for the grand finale.
Yes.
Evaluation.
The valuation, the big one.
The big one.
What pearls of wisdom did Sir Danish offer for conquering this last hurdle?
Yes. Tell us.
Well, similar to question 1.
Okay.
Students needed to make a clear judgment. Now, remember, this question asked them to advise on a new HR strategy.
Right.
So they had to explicitly state which strategy they believed was best for the company and why.
Okay.
But remember, that's just level 1 evaluation.
Right. We got to level up.
To reach those higher levels, they needed to go deeper. They needed to provide context.
So no more, I recommend strategy X because it sounds good.
No.
We need, I recommend strategy X because it aligns with the company's specific needs,
Yes.
challenges, and here's why. And then unleash those reasons, the evidence.
Give me that context.
All that good stuff.
Yes. Level 2 evaluation. It would provide a more detailed explanation of why that specific strategy was chosen, maybe even comparing it to other strategies that were considered, and explaining why those were ruled out.
Okay.
And for that top level 3 evaluation,
Yes.
students really needed to bring in the context from the case study.
Context is king.
Context is king, showing they understood the company's unique circumstances, how that chosen strategy would actually address the company's specific challenges.
It's the difference between giving generic advice
Yes.
and providing a tailor-made solution
Kids,
that's actually relevant and applicable to the business.
you got it.
I love it.
And you know that it depends on mindset. Super helpful here for evaluation.
Okay.
Acknowledge that there might be other factors out there that could influence how effective your strategy is going to be.
Right, because nothing in business is ever guaranteed.
Exactly.
So instead of saying, this strategy will solve all your problems,
Right.
maybe you say, this strategy has the potential to address these specific issues, but its effectiveness will depend on factors such as, and then list those factors.
Yes, and bring in those specific details from the case study whenever possible.
I love it.
It's fantastic. You're getting it.
I'm trying.
And this is really the beauty of this entire process. We're not just learning how to answer essay questions. We're developing those critical thinking skills that will help us in any business situation.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's about analyzing information.
Yes.
Making judgments, backing up our recommendations with solid evidence.
Yes.
But you know what would make this whole essay writing process even smoother?
What's that?
A roadmap, a blueprint,
Ooh.
a framework that guides us through the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah.
And guess what? Sir Danish has provided just that. He's outlined a recommended structure for answering 20-mark questions.
Oh, he's amazing.
That is pure gold.
I know. It's time to reveal that secret weapon,
Yes.
that essay structure that can help us unlock those top marks.
Unlock the secrets.
So we're going to have to save it for the next part of our deep dive.
Ooh, the suspense is killing me.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Back for more essay goodness.
We're talking all things 20-mark essays.
Those essays.
In the last 2 parts, we've been talking about, well, careful reading, applying your knowledge, building those chains of reasoning.
Those glorious chains of reasoning.
But now it's time for the secret weapon, the piece de resistance, the ideal essay structure.
Ah, yes, the structure. A beacon of hope for us essay writers.
It's like having those turn-by-turn directions when you're venturing out into uncharted territory.
A roadmap to success.
Exactly.
I love it. So let's unveil this masterpiece. Paragraph by paragraph. Where do we begin our journey?
Okay, so paragraph 1. This is where you're setting the stage. You're going to define that key term or concept from the question.
Okay.
But here's the twist. You have to make it relevant to the case study.
There you go.
Don't just give me a dictionary definition. Show me you understand how this concept actually applies to the business you're analyzing.
So if the question is about, let's say, competitive advantage, we don't just say competitive advantage is what makes a company's products or services superior to its rivals.
No.
We'd say something like competitive advantage is what makes a company's offerings superior to its rivals. In the case of, let's say, company LC, their competitive advantage stems from their unique patented technology, which allows them to offer products with unmatched performance and durability.
Boom. You took that definition, you made it relevant to the case.
I'm a star student.
You're showing me you understand.
All right. Enough about the intro. Let's move on to the heart of the argument, paragraphs 2 and 3.
Okay, this is where you develop those 2 main arguments. And Sir Danish suggests this brilliant approach. What plus how plus why plus so.
I like it. It's catchy.
It's a mini framework
Okay.
within your larger essay structure, and it helps you make each point.
Okay, break it down for me. What does each element represent?
Okay, so what is the specific action or strategy you're discussing? How that action works or how it's implemented. Why is all about the reasons behind that action, the goals, the benefits. And so is those consequences or the potential implications both good and bad?
So we're not just stating the point, we're really fleshing it out.
Exactly.
Analyzing it from every angle, showing those chains of reasoning.
You got it.
That's going to wow those examiners. But give me an example. I need to see this in action.
Okay, let's imagine the question is asking about strategies for improving employee motivation.
Okay, employee motivation, good one.
Your first point might be implementing a performance-based bonus system. So you'd say something like implementing a performance-based bonus system. That's the what ties financial rewards directly to individual performance metrics. That's the how. This incentivizes employees to exceed expectations. That's the why. Potentially leading to increased productivity and profitability. However, counterargument, remember, it could also foster unhealthy competition and potentially lead to some unethical behavior if it's not carefully managed.
Ooh, okay. I see it. We've got the action, the method, the reasoning, the potential consequences, both positive and negative.
Yeah, it's a nicely balanced equation. Now, paragraph 3, same deal, but make sure this argument links back to your first argument. Considers those broader implications for the business. Think big picture.
So if our first argument was about, let's say, that bonus system,
Yeah.
maybe the second one could be about creating opportunities for professional development.
Yes. Because investing in your employee skills and their growth, that can actually complement those financial incentives and create a more well-rounded approach
I like it.
to motivation.
I'm seeing the connections.
You're getting it. And your second paragraph might look a little something like this. Creating opportunities for professional development. There's the what, such as offering training courses and mentorship programs. That's the how, demonstrates the company's commitment to employees' growth, increasing their job satisfaction and loyalty. That's the why. This, in turn, can reduce turnover, improve knowledge sharing, and ultimately enhance overall team performance. Boom. There's your so.
I love how we're layering in those complexities.
Yes.
Acknowledging those interconnected factors. It's beautiful.
It's a symphony of business strategies.
It really is. And speaking of that big picture,
Yes.
that brings us to paragraph 4, where we kind of zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
Consider that broader context. What are those internal and external factors that can influence the situation?
So we're thinking about things like market trends,
Okay.
economic conditions, competitor actions, internal resources, company culture.
All those forces that shape the business landscape.
Exactly.
Got it. But remember, we need to be specific here.
Yes.
Relate those factors back to the case study.
Always.
Sure that we understand how they connect to the company we're analyzing. So we might say something like, Company LC operates in a highly competitive industry characterized by rapid technological advancements. This means they need to constantly innovate and upskill their workforce to stay ahead of the game. Internally, their hierarchical organizational structure might actually hinder communication and decision-making, potentially impacting their ability to adapt to those changing market conditions.
Yes. You're showing me that you understand that the company isn't operating in a vacuum.
Right.
You're looking at the whole ecosystem. And now you might be thinking, okay, we analyzed, we looked at the context, what else is there? And this is where things get fun.
Ooh, fun. Tell me more.
Paragraph 5. This is where you get to show off a little bit. Offer up an alternative strategy. Maybe an approach that could address some of those limitations of the original strategy. It's your chance to think outside the box.
So I could, for example, build on those previous points
Yes.
about employee motivation and the company's hierarchical structure and say, to foster a more engaged and motivated workforce, LC could consider implementing a more decentralized decision-making process, empowering employees at all levels to contribute ideas and take ownership of their work.
Perfect. You've identified a potential solution that addresses a key concern from those previous paragraphs. You're not just pointing out problems, you're pitching about solutions.
I'm a problem solver.
You are.
But alas, all good things must come to an end. How do we wrap up this essay masterpiece? What about paragraph 6?
Paragraph 6. It's your grand finale.
Okay.
It's your closing argument. But it's not just summarizing your points, it's weighing both sides. You're highlighting those key advantages and disadvantages and giving me that balanced, well-substantiated judgment.
So it's like we're in a courtroom, we've presented the evidence,
Right.
heard the arguments, and now we, the judge, are giving the verdict.
Precisely. And even though you're giving a judgment, remember, it depends.
Ah, yes, it depends.
There are complexities, uncertainties, and the success of a strategy is rarely guaranteed.
It's true, it's true.
So if we go back to our employee motivation example, you might conclude by saying something like, while financial incentives can be effective in driving those short-term performance improvements, to really foster a motivated and engaged workforce, it requires a more holistic approach. Think opportunities for growth, supportive work environment, a culture that values employee contributions. The specific strategies that LC chooses to implement should be tailored to their specific context and, of course, monitored to ensure their long-term success.
Okay, I think I'm getting the hang of this.
You're doing great.
We've got the summary.
Yes.
We've got those complexities.
Right.
We've got a balanced and insightful conclusion. Fantastic.
Before we wrap up today,
Yeah.
I want to make sure we address one final point that often trips students up.
Okay.
The difference between those evaluate and advise questions.
Yes, those command words can be tricky.
They can be, but the difference is pretty simple.
Okay.
Evaluate, you're presenting a balanced argument,
Mm-hmm.
weighing those pros and cons, potential benefits and risks.
Okay.
Before you arrive at your judgment.
Okay.
You're the judge. You're considering all sides.
I love it. I've got my gavel.
Advise is more action-oriented.
Okay.
You're making a specific recommendation based on your analysis. You're putting on that consultant hat.
So if we had an evaluate question, say, about Elsie's decision to outsource their manufacturing,
Yes.
we'd discuss the potential cost savings, the risks to quality control, the impact on local employment,
Yeah.
and then we'd conclude with a judgment on whether the decision was a good idea or not.
Exactly.
But for an advice question, maybe about improving customer satisfaction,
Yeah.
we'd analyze those current customer service processes,
Mm-hmm.
explore different strategies,
Yes.
and then recommend a course of action, backed up by evidence, of course.
You got it. Evaluate. Judgment.
Judgment.
And-
Action.
Got it. And with Sir Danish's recommended structure, we are well equipped to tackle any of those questions.
Absolutely. We've got the knowledge, we've got the tools, and now it's time to put it all into practice.
Remember, it's not just about answering the question.
Right.
It's about showing you understand and can think critically.
And strategically.
Go forth and conquer those essays.
A huge thank you to Sir Danish Tabassum for his invaluable insights. This deep dive wouldn't have been possible without his expertise. Until next time, happy essay writing, everyone.